Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I've been throwing birthday parties for my daughter since she turned 3, and I thought I had everything figured out. The decorations, the cake, the right mix of structured activities and free play. But I was very wrong. My daughter just turned 7 and she wanted a party with her friends from school. We invited 10 girls all around the same age. I spent weeks planning everything. We had the usual setup with snacks, a beautiful cake, and plenty of activities to keep the girls entertained. But I also wanted to add something special, so I planned 8 different party games. Things like bingo, pin the broom on the witch, musical chairs. Each game had a winner, and each winner got a small prize. Nothing fancy, just little toys and trinkets from the dollar store. The party was a drop-off event, but I told all the parents they were welcome to stay if they wanted to. Most of them left, including the mom of one of the girls. I'll just call her Karen's daughter, though I hate to think of my friend that way. At the time, she was actually one of my closest friends. Everything started out great. The girls were running around, laughing, eating way too much sugar. Then we started the games. The first game was bingo. One girl won, got her prize, and everyone clapped. No problems. The second game was different. Karen's daughter didn't win, and she completely fell apart. I'm talking full meltdown, crying, red face, the works. I went over to comfort her and told her there were more games coming and she'd have other chances. The other girls were sweet about it too, trying to cheer her up. Eventually she calmed down enough for us to continue. But then it happened again and again. Every single time she didn't win, there were tears. By the fourth game, I was getting worried. The other girls were starting to feel awkward. Some of them were even holding back from celebrating when they won because they didn't want to upset her more. Around the 5th or 6th game, my daughter pulled me aside. She looked upset and asked if she could give Karen's daughter one of her toys because she felt bad. I told her she didn't have to do that since it was her birthday, but she insisted. She said she wanted to because the girl was really sad. So my daughter went to her room, grabbed one of her favorite little toys, and gave it to Karen's daughter. The girl stopped crying after that, which was a relief. The rest of the party went smoothly. At the end, every girl got a party favor bag with candy and small toys. Everyone seemed happy when they left. The next day, I texted Karen to check in. I wanted to make sure her daughter had fun despite the rough patches. I asked if her daughter had a good time and mentioned that I noticed she was having a hard time during the games. Karen replied asking what I meant about a hard time. I explained that her daughter got pretty upset a few times when she didn't win the games, and I just wanted to make sure she was okay. There was a long pause before she responded. She asked if I didn't have prizes for all the girls. I told her no, just for the winners of each game, but everyone got party favor bags at the end. She just said, "Oh, that was it." I figured maybe she was a little bothered but would get over it. I had to cancel a play date we had scheduled for later that week because my daughter came down with a cold. Nothing personal, just didn't want to spread germs around. That's when I got the text saying I had made her daughter cry twice this week. I stared at my phone, completely confused. Twice? I called her right away and asked what she was talking about. She said first the party, now canceling on her daughter. She explained that her daughter had been looking forward to the play dates all week. I told her that kids get sick and I didn't want her daughter to catch anything. She said that wasn't the point, and that I was upsetting her child, and she needed me to understand that. We agreed to meet in person because this was getting out of hand. We met at the coffee shop the next morning. She looked tense the moment she sat down. She told me she had been thinking a lot about the party. I said okay and waited for her to continue. She said it wasn't okay what I did and that I made deliberate choices that hurt her daughter. I told her I was sorry her daughter was upset, but I wasn't responsible for how she reacts to not winning a game. She insisted that, yes, I was. She said I chose not to have enough prizes and I chose to put her daughter in that situation. I reminded her it was a birthday party with games and that some kids win and some don't. That's how games work. She argued that it was supposed to be a fun time for her daughter. Instead, I gave her a lesson about winning and losing, and that wasn't my job. I wasn't her parent. My jaw literally dropped. I asked if she was saying I should have given every single child a participation prize. She said yes, they're 7 years old, and I embarrassed her daughter in front of her friends. I pointed out that 6 out of 11 girls won something. Plus, my daughter gave her one of her own toys to make her feel better, and everyone got party favors. She said that wasn't the same and that I should have planned better. She thought I owed her daughter an apology. I asked her to clarify. An apology for throwing my daughter a birthday party? She said for hurting hers. I stood up. I was done. I told her I wasn't apologizing. Her daughter needed to learn that she won't always win at everything, and she needed to learn that the world isn't going to cater to her daughter's feelings every single time. I walked out. We haven't spoken since. My daughter asked about her friend a few times, but I told her they were busy. I'm not about to expose my kid to someone who thinks the entire world should revolve around making sure their child never experiences disappointment. Other parents from the party reached out to thank me, said their daughters had a blast and loved the games. I pulled into my aunt's driveway and felt myself relax a little. Thanksgiving at her place was always better than the chaos at my parents' house. She lived in this nice, quiet neighborhood with a huge backyard and a pool that we always ended up using, even in November when the weather was still decent enough. My aunt opened the door before I could knock. She told me to come in and said everyone was already there waiting. I walked inside and the smell of turkey and stuffing hit me right away. My stomach growled even though I'd eaten breakfast just a few hours ago. The living room was packed with relatives, everyone talking over each other in that way families do during holidays. Then I noticed him sitting on the couch. This guy my aunt always invited because nobody else would. I'd seen him at a few family gatherings before, but we'd never really talked. He just sort of existed in the background, eating our food and taking up space on the furniture. My cousin walked over and nudged me. She pointed out that he was here again. I said I noticed. She explained that our aunt felt bad for him or something and said he didn't have anywhere else to go for the holiday. I told her that was nice of our aunt, I guess. My aunt called everyone to the dining room and we all crowded around the table. She'd outdone herself this year. Turkey, mashed potatoes, 3 different types of stuffing, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce, rolls, and at least 4 pies sitting on the counter for later. We ate until we couldn't move. The guy sat across from me and kept reaching over people to grab more food without asking. He spilled gravy on the tablecloth twice and didn't even apologize. My aunt just smiled and told him not to worry about it. After dinner, my cousin suggested we all get in the pool to work off the food coma. Everyone agreed except for the guy who said he'd rather watch the football game that was starting soon. Fine by me. Less weird energy in the pool. I went to the guest room to change into my bathing suit. When I came back out, most of my family was already in the water, splashing around and laughing. The sun was starting to set, but it was still warm enough that the pool felt amazing. I walked along the edge of the pool, heading toward the stairs to get in. The guy was sitting in one of the lounge chairs nearby, scrolling on his phone. I didn't think anything of it. Then he stood up. I barely had time to register what was happening before I felt his hands on my back. He shoved me hard, and I went flying into the pool. Not a gentle push, not a playful nudge. A full force shove that made me hit the water at an awkward angle. I came up sputtering, my shoulder aching from how I'd landed. Everyone in the pool had gone quiet, staring at him. He was laughing like he'd just pulled off the funniest prank in the world. He said he got me good and seemed really proud of himself. I climbed out of the pool, water dripping everywhere. My shoulder really hurt, but I wasn't about to let him see that. He walked back inside, still chuckling to himself. My cousin swam over to the edge and asked what the hell that was about. I told her I had no idea. She asked if I was okay. I said yeah, just pissed off. I sat on the edge of the pool for a minute, trying to calm down. Then I remembered my cousin had brought over some water guns earlier in the day. They were sitting in a bin by the back door. I got out and walked over, grabbed the biggest one and filled it up with the hose. I waited. After about 15 minutes, he came back outside to get something from the cooler. He was wearing the same clothes, completely dry. I raised the water gun and let him have it. Got him right in the chest and face. The water soaked through his shirt right away. He started screaming, asking what the hell I was doing. I told him it was just a joke, right? Like when he pushed me into the pool, he called me a piece of trash and yelled that I ruined his clothes. He was screaming so loud that everyone came running. My mom and aunt rushed out from the kitchen. My other relatives climbed out of the pool to see what was happening. He kept yelling about how I sprayed him with a water gun and told everyone to look at his shirt because it was ruined. My aunt looked at me, then at him, then at his soaking wet shirt. She asked him if he didn't push me into the pool first. He shouted that it was different because that was a joke. My mom pointed out that I made a joke back and asked what the problem was. He said that I ruined his clothes. My cousin started laughing. Then my uncle joined in. Within seconds, everyone was cracking up. Even my aunt, who'd invited him out of pity, had her hand over her mouth trying not to laugh. He yelled that this wasn't funny. My uncle said it was pretty funny. The guy shouted that he barely knew me, and I attacked him. I pointed out that he barely knew me either, but he thought it was okay to shove me into a pool. He didn't have an answer for that. He looked around at everyone laughing at him. Then he stormed inside and threw himself down on the couch in front of the TV. We all went back to enjoying the pool. Every time I looked at the windows, I could see him sitting there in his wet clothes, staring at the football game. But every few minutes, he'd turn his head and glare at me through the glass. He sat there for the rest of the evening, not talking to anyone, just watching TV and shooting daggers at me with his eyes. When people went inside for pie, he didn't join. When my aunt asked if he wanted anything, he just grunted and ignored her. When we were all getting ready to leave, my aunt walked me to my car. She apologized for what happened earlier. I told her it wasn't her fault. She said she didn't think she'd be inviting him back next year. I agreed that was probably for the best. I moved to Melbourne for university months ago. Found a flat share online with two other students. Rent was decent, location was good, and my roommates seemed normal enough during the video call. That lasted about 2 weeks. One of my roommates owns a cat. Cute little ginger thing, always sleeping in sunny spots during the day, purring when you walk past. Sweet animal. I liked him at first. Then night came. The first time it happened, I thought I was having a nightmare. Something heavy crashed onto my chest at 3 in the morning. I woke up gasping, heart pounding, to find the cat sitting on my ribs, staring at me like I owed him money. Before I could process what was happening, he knocked my water bottle off the nightstand with one deliberate paw swipe, then started yowling like someone was murdering him. I stumbled out of bed, let him out, cleaned up the water, and went back to sleep thinking it was a one-time thing. It wasn't. Every single night. Same time, 3 in the morning like clockwork. The cat would somehow get my door open, launch himself onto my bed, and start his chaos routine. Knocking things over, screaming, pawing at my face. I'd wake up exhausted, drag myself to my morning shifts at the coffee shop, and spend the day feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. After 2 weeks of this, I was losing my mind. I work 5 mornings a week. I need sleep to function. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I talked to my roommate. I asked her if we could talk about the cat. She asked what about him. I explained that he kept getting into my room at night and waking me up every single time, and asked if there was any way she could keep him in her room after midnight. She laughed. Actually laughed. She told me he liked me and that I should feel honored he chose my room. I said I was honored but really needed sleep because I worked early shifts and was exhausted. She said he was just being affectionate and that I was overreacting. I told her I wasn't overreacting and was simply asking her to keep her cat out of my room at night. She said she couldn't control where he went because cats have free will. That was it. That was her solution. So I started locking my door. The next morning she cornered me in the kitchen. She asked if I had locked my door the night before. I said yeah. She told me he had been crying outside my room for an hour and was so upset. I said he would get used to it. She said that was cruel and that I was emotionally abusing him. I stared at her. She was serious. I told her I wasn't abusing anyone and was just trying to sleep. She said I clearly hated animals. She stormed off, and that's when things got weird. She stopped talking to me entirely, gave me cold looks when we passed in the hallway, started telling our other roommate that I was cruel to animals. I ignored it. I had my door locked. I was finally sleeping, and I figured she'd get over it eventually. She didn't. One night, I woke up to the sound of scratching at my door, not the cat. Someone was messing with the lock. I got up, opened the door, and found her crouched there with a screwdriver. I asked what she was doing. She stood up, not even embarrassed. She said he needed to sleep where he wanted and that I couldn't keep him locked out. I told her it was my room and to stay out of it. She insisted he had every right to be in there and that this was animal abuse. I said keeping a door closed was not abuse. She said yes, it was. I shut the door in her face and pushed my desk chair under the handle. My heart was racing. This was insane. The next day I came home from work to find 3 people standing in our living room. The landlord, someone from animal control, and 2 police officers. My roommate was in the middle of a speech about how I was mistreating her cat, how I was denying him access to spaces he needed, how I was causing him psychological harm by locking my door. The officer told her they had checked the cat and he was healthy, well fed, with no signs of distress or mistreatment. She said that was only because he was resilient, but that I was still abusing him. The animal control person said keeping a bedroom door closed was not animal abuse. She insisted yes, it was, and that they were all wrong. The landlord looked exhausted. The officers looked annoyed. I looked like I hadn't slept in weeks, which I basically hadn't. The officer told her this was not an emergency and to stop calling emergency services for non-emergencies. She said it was an emergency and called them all incompetent. The officer warned her that if she kept this up, they would have to take further action. She asked what further action and said they should be arresting me instead. She pointed at me like I was some kind of criminal. I just stood there holding my work bag, too tired to even be angry anymore. The officers started walking toward the door. She followed them, still yelling. She told them they were all useless and didn't care about animals and were on a power trip. The officer told her to step back. She refused and said they needed to listen to her. She shoved the door hard, while the officer was standing right there. Everything went silent. The officer told her to turn around and put her hands behind her back. Her face went white. She asked what and why. The officer said she was under arrest for disorderly conduct and misuse of emergency services. She started screaming, saying they couldn't do this, that she was the victim, that they were all corrupt. They cuffed her anyway and walked her out while she shouted the entire way down the stairs. The landlord looked at me and apologized, saying he would handle the lease termination and that she wouldn't be coming back. I nodded. I didn't have words. Our other roommate took over care of the cat. It turns out with some actual training he's perfectly fine sleeping in one room at night. He doesn't scream. He doesn't break into places. He's just a normal cat. I share a bathroom with my stepfather, and his disgusting habits have made living in this house almost unbearable. My mom married him 3 years ago when I was 15. At first, he seemed like a decent guy. He was polite, considerate, and made an effort to bond with me. But once the honeymoon phase ended and he got comfortable, everything changed. His true colors came out, and they were not pretty. It started with small things that I tried to overlook. A few stray hairs in the sink after he shaved. Some toothpaste spit that he didn't rinse away. Nothing worth starting a fight over. But then it escalated. Way worse than I ever could have imagined. Every single morning I'd walk into our shared bathroom and find it looking like an absolute disaster zone. Hair was everywhere. Not just a few strands on the counter, but clumps of it scattered all over the floor, stuck to the walls, floating in the bathtub. The toilet seat would be covered in dried pee stains, and there'd be splashes on the floor tiles around the base. Sometimes I'd walk in and the entire bathroom would smell like a sewer, because he'd taken a massive dump and just walked away without flushing. The bathtub would have this thick, grimy ring around it after he used it with soap scum and body hair and God knows what else just sitting there waiting for someone else to deal with. The mirror would be splattered with toothpaste and water spots. His wet towel would be thrown on the floor instead of hung up. It was like sharing a bathroom with a wild animal. I tried talking to my mom about it after the first few weeks of this nightmare. I explained that the situation was getting out of hand and that I couldn't even brush my teeth in the morning without having to deep clean the entire bathroom first. She promised she'd have a conversation with him about it. She said she'd make it clear that this behavior wasn't acceptable. But absolutely nothing changed. She'd mention it to him over dinner, and he'd just shrug it off like it was no big deal. He promised to do better and say he'd be more careful. Spoiler alert, he never was. One morning, I walked in to use the bathroom before school and found a huge unflushed turd just floating there in the toilet bowl. I actually gagged and had to cover my mouth. That was my breaking point. I was done being polite about this. I pulled out my phone, took a picture of the disgusting toilet, and sent it directly to my mom with a long message explaining that this was what I had to deal with every single morning. She was absolutely horrified when she saw it. I could hear her from my bedroom confronting him about it in their room down the hall. She told him how completely unacceptable this was and demanded to know how he could just leave the bathroom in that condition. He claimed he forgot to flush and that it wasn't that big of a deal. My mom's voice got louder as she insisted it absolutely was a big deal and that I shouldn't have to clean up after a grown man. He mumbled some half-hearted apology and promised it wouldn't happen again. I knew better than to believe him. And sure enough, I was right. The very next morning, it was the exact same story. Hair coating every surface, pee stains on the seat, unflushed toilet. That's when I decided I was done asking nicely and done relying on my mom to fix this. I was going to take matters into my own hands. The first time I found hair scattered all over the sink and counter after that decision, I stood there staring at his toothbrush sitting in its holder on the shelf. A twisted but brilliant idea popped into my head. I grabbed his toothbrush and used it like a tiny broom to sweep up all the loose hair from the counter and sink. I made sure to really work the hair deep into the bristles so it would be good and stuck in there. Then I took his blue face cloth hanging on his designated hook and used it to wipe down the rest of the surfaces until everything looked spotless. I carefully folded the face cloth and hung it back on his hook like absolutely nothing had happened. When I found pee stains covering the toilet seat and splattered on the floor tiles, I grabbed his face cloth again. I wiped every single disgusting drop, making sure to get into all the crevices. Then I folded it neatly and put it back on his hook without rinsing it even once. He'd use that same cloth to wash his face later that evening. After he'd take one of his long baths and leave the tub absolutely filthy, I'd use his face cloth to scrub away the grime. I'd work on that mysterious dirt ring he always left behind around the waterline. Then back on the hook it went, waiting for him. Every morning at breakfast, he started complaining. He'd tell my mom that his face cloth smelled weird and suggest we needed to buy a different laundry detergent. My mom would pick it up, smell it, and tell him it smelled perfectly fine to her. She'd say maybe he was imagining things. Then he'd mention that there was hair mysteriously stuck in his toothbrush and wonder out loud how that even happened. I'd casually suggest that maybe he should rinse it more thoroughly after brushing his teeth. I had to bite my tongue and fight to keep a straight face every single time. This routine went on for 2 solid weeks. Every single day I'd walk into that bathroom and find some new disgusting mess he'd left behind. And every single day I'd use his personal hygiene items to clean it all up. His complaints at breakfast became more and more frequent. He started insisting that something was seriously wrong with his face cloth. He said it smelled like piss and that he wanted to throw it away and get a new one. My mom told him if he was so concerned about it, he should wash it himself instead of waiting for laundry day. He also kept finding hair in his toothbrush despite claiming he was rinsing it carefully. Then something absolutely miraculous happened. The bathroom started staying clean. Not just cleaner, but actually clean. The hair disappeared from the surfaces. The toilet got flushed after every single use. The tub was wiped down after every bath. The floor stayed dry. I didn't have to do anything except my normal, quick cleaning routine. I thought he'd finally learned his lesson after 2 weeks of unknowingly cleaning his own filth off his face. I thought maybe he'd connected the dots somehow or just decided to be a better person. Then I left for college at the end of August. For 4 absolutely blissful months, I didn't have to think about his disgusting bathroom habits, even once. I had my own dorm bathroom that I shared with a roommate named Jessica, who actually knew how to clean up after herself. We had a system, we had standards, and we had mutual respect. It was heaven. But I came home last week for winter break, excited to see my mom and sleep in my own bed. The first morning back, I walked into that shared bathroom at 7:30 a.m. and almost burst into tears. It was like stepping through a time portal back to my worst nightmare. Hair was matted in the sink and stuck to the faucet. Pee was splattered across the toilet seat and pooled on the floor. An unflushed toilet was sitting there greeting me like an old enemy I desperately hoped never to see again. The bathtub had that familiar grimy ring. It was like the past 4 months had never happened. He'd gone right back to his disgusting old ways the absolute second I left for school. I walked into the kitchen where he was sitting in at the table eating breakfast and asked him point blank if we were really doing this again. He looked up from his cereal bowl and asked what I meant. I told him about the state of the bathroom and how completely disgusting it was. He said he'd clean it up later when he had time. I pointed out that later was what he always said and it never actually happened. He just shrugged his shoulders and kept eating his cereal like I hadn't said anything. My mom had already left for work at 6 a.m., so there was no point trying to get her to back me up. I'd have to handle this on my own. That afternoon, I made a special trip to the pharmacy across town. I picked up a tube of capsaicin cream, the kind people use for arthritis and muscle pain. It cost me $12.50. The package had big red warnings about washing your hands thoroughly after use and avoiding contact with eyes, mouth, and other sensitive areas. It was absolutely perfect for what I had in mind. The next morning, after finding the bathroom in its usual disaster state, I got to work on my plan. I used his toothbrush to sweep up all the hair just like I'd done before. I used his face cloth to wipe up the pee stains and scrub the tub grime. But this time I added a very special finishing touch to my routine. I squeezed a tiny amount of the capsaicin cream onto a corner of his face cloth and rubbed it in thoroughly. Not enough to be visible to the naked eye, but definitely enough to make a serious impact. I also put a small dab of the cream on the handle of his toothbrush where he'd grip it. Then I put everything back exactly where it belonged and went about my day. That evening around 6 p.m. I heard him yelping loudly from the bathroom. He shouted that his face was burning and demanded to know what the hell was happening to him. My mom called from the living room asking what was wrong. He said he didn't know but that his face felt like it was literally on fire. His hands were burning too from where he'd held his toothbrush. He spent a good 20 minutes splashing cold water on his face, which only made the burning sensation worse because water spreads capsaicin around instead of washing it away. I could hear him cursing and groaning through the bathroom door. My mom asked if he needed to go to the emergency room. He said no, but that something was seriously wrong. She suggested maybe he was having an allergic reaction to something. The next morning I walked into the bathroom expecting the usual mess, but it was spotless, completely, perfectly clean. The morning after that, same thing. The counter was wiped down, the toilet was flushed and clean, the tub sparkled. He started cleaning up immediately after himself every single time he used the bathroom. And even better, he started using the guest bathroom downstairs instead of our shared one upstairs. He'd make the trip down 2 flights of stairs rather than risk whatever was happening to him in our bathroom. My mom asked me about the situation one evening while we were doing dishes together. She mentioned she'd noticed my stepfather had been exclusively using the other bathroom for the past week. She wondered if I knew why he'd suddenly made that change. I acted confused and casually suggested maybe he just wanted a change of scenery. I said maybe the downstairs bathroom got better light in the morning or something. She seemed to accept that explanation. The guest bathroom downstairs didn't have any of his personal items in it, which meant he had to bring his toothbrush and face cloth down with him every time. He started keeping a whole separate set of bathroom supplies down there. He bought a new toothbrush, a new face cloth, new everything. I noticed he threw away his old toothbrush and face cloth from our bathroom. He wouldn't even touch them to move them. My mom asked him directly one night at dinner why he'd switched bathrooms. He said the upstairs bathroom gave him bad vibes now. He claimed something about it was making his skin react badly. She asked if he thought there was mold or something in there. He said he didn't know and didn't care, he just wasn't using it anymore. I had to excuse myself from the table because I was about to burst out laughing. For the rest of winter break, I had that bathroom completely to myself. It stayed clean because I was the only one using it. No more hair, no more pee stains, no more unflushed toilets. It was like a dream come true. When I went back to school after New Year's, I took the tube of capsaicin cream with me. I figured I might need it again next time I came home for a visit, just in case he decided to get brave and start using our bathroom again. My mom called me a week after I got back to campus. She said my stepfather had asked if he could convert the upstairs bathroom into just my bathroom since he never used it anyway. He wanted to claim the guest bathroom downstairs as his own personal space instead. I told her that sounded like a great idea. She seemed relieved that we'd found a solution that worked for everyone. She had no idea what had actually caused this sudden change in behavior, and I wasn't about to tell her. Some problems solve themselves with just a little creative encouragement. Now when I come home for breaks, I have my own private bathroom that stays exactly as clean as I want it. And my stepfather has his own bathroom downstairs that he can destroy however he wants. My mom doesn't have to play mediator anymore. Everyone's happy. Well, almost everyone. I'm pretty sure my stepfather still has no idea what actually happened to him that week. He probably thinks our upstairs bathroom is cursed or contaminated somehow. And honestly, I'm perfectly fine with him thinking that. Whatever keeps him out of my space and forces him to clean up after himself. The capsaicin cream is still in my dorm room closet, tucked away in a drawer. I haven't needed it since that one time, but I keep it around as insurance, just in case he ever gets the idea to start using my bathroom again when I'm home, just in case he forgets the lesson he learned. I was starving and McDonald's was calling my name. I pulled into the parking lot around noon on a Saturday and the place was absolutely slammed. I stopped in the middle lane with my turn signal on, waiting for a safe gap to cross into the entrance. There was technically space to squeeze through, but the cars coming toward me were moving fast enough that I wasn't about to risk it. I'd rather wait 10 extra seconds than cause an accident. My blinker kept clicking while I sat there watching for an opening. Then I heard an engine roar behind me. A silver sedan came flying out from behind my car before I even had time to react. The driver jerked hard to the right, missing my rear bumper by inches, and shot across the lane into oncoming traffic. She didn't just cut me off. She cut off 3 other cars that were heading straight toward her. Brakes screamed. Horns blared from every direction. One car had to swerve into the next lane just to avoid slamming into her. The woman in the silver sedan didn't even slow down. She kept going like she owned the road and tore into the McDonald's parking lot without a care in the world. I sat there frozen, both hands locked on my steering wheel, trying to wrap my head around what just happened. This person had nearly caused a massive pileup because waiting 5 extra seconds was apparently too much to ask. When the traffic finally cleared, I crossed over and pulled into the lot. My heart was still pounding. The silver sedan wasn't hard to find after that stunt. She was already sitting in the drive-through line on the left side. I looked at both lanes to figure out which one to pick. The left lane had about 6 cars in it. The right lane had 5. I did a quick mental calculation trying to guess which cars had bigger orders based on how long they'd been sitting there. The right lane looked like it might move faster. I pulled in behind the last car and tried to shake off my frustration. People drove like complete morons every single day. At least nobody got hurt this time. But I couldn't stop myself from glancing over at the left lane, at her car. My lane started moving almost immediately. One car finished up and pulled forward to the next window. Then another car moved up. When it was my turn to order, I pulled up to the speaker and kept it simple. 2 cheeseburgers, a large fries, and a Coke. I always ordered the same thing, so the whole process took maybe 30 seconds. By the time I finished placing my order, I'd already moved up 3 full spots ahead of where the woman was sitting in her lane. She was still stuck behind a van that looked like it was ordering enough food to feed a small army. I couldn't help but smile. She'd risked causing a serious accident. She'd nearly destroyed my rear bumper. She'd forced 3 other drivers to slam on their brakes and honk at her. And for what? To end up 3 cars behind me in the drive-thru. I rolled forward in line, paid at the first window, and grabbed my bag of food at the second window. The whole time I kept checking my rearview mirror. She was still back there, trapped behind that same van, waiting. When I finally pulled out of the drive-thru with my food sitting in the passenger seat, an idea hit me. I rolled down my window, leaned on my horn, just long enough to get her attention, and gave her the biggest, most enthusiastic wave I could manage. My car wasn't exactly forgettable. Bright orange paint, a dented front bumper, and a very specific bumper sticker that said, "I brake for tacos," on the back. There was absolutely no way she didn't recognize it as the same car she'd nearly sideswiped less than 10 minutes ago in her desperate rush to get ahead of me. Her face when she looked over and made the connection was absolutely priceless. I watched in my side mirror as her expression shifted from confusion to recognition to pure, unfiltered frustration. Her mouth dropped open like she wanted to yell something at me, but I was already pulling away. I drove out of that parking lot feeling lighter than I had felt in days. Was it petty? 100%. Did it solve anything or teach her a valuable lesson about driving safely? Probably not. But watching someone who had endangered multiple people just to save a handful of seconds end up worse off than if they just waited like a reasonable human being, that was absolutely worth it. I took a huge bite of my cheeseburger as I merged back onto the main road, still grinning from ear to ear. Sometimes the universe has this perfect way of dishing out instant karma, and sometimes you get to be right there in the front row to watch it all unfold. That woman could have caused a serious, multi-car accident with her reckless, entitled driving. Instead, all she got was cold fries, a longer wait time, and the humiliating knowledge that the person she tried to cut off had beaten her to the finish line anyway. I finished my first cheeseburger and tossed the wrapper back in the bag, feeling satisfied in more ways than one. It wasn't really about winning or losing some imaginary race. It was about the fact that being an aggressive, dangerous, entitled driver hadn't gotten her anywhere. She still had to wait in line, and she still had to sit there watching other cars get their food first. And she had to do it all while knowing that if she'd just followed the basic rules of the road and waited her turn like everyone else, she would have gone through the line just as fast, if not faster. The irony was almost too perfect. When I got home about 20 minutes later, I sat in my driveway for a minute before going inside. I thought about how many times I'd seen people pull dangerous moves exactly like that one. Weaving through traffic at high speeds, cutting people off without signaling, tailgating someone going the speed limit, all just to save maybe 30 or 40 seconds at most. And for what? So they could end up sitting at the exact same red light as everyone else they'd just cut off. So they could arrive at their destination 12 seconds earlier than they would have otherwise. It never made sense to me. Today though, I'd gotten to see that kind of reckless behavior backfire in real time. And honestly, it felt pretty damn good. I grabbed my bag with my second cheeseburger still inside and headed into my house, still smiling about the look on that woman's face when she realized who I was. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.